We will give you milk for your baby, but you must lie with one of us." Said the Apache women. The sun was just beginning to rise over the jagged hills, painting the desert in soft shades of orange and gold. The air was dry, and the wind carried the faint scent of dust and sagebrush. In this harsh land, every step was a struggle, and every sound could signal danger. Among these hills, a young mother walked with slow, careful steps, her small baby cradled tightly in her arms. Her clothes were worn and dusty, her face pale from exhaustion and worry. The baby's cries were soft but persistent, a reminder of the tiny life that depended entirely on her. She had been traveling for days, moving quietly through the rough terrain. Her husband had been taken away by soldiers months earlier, leaving her alone to care for the child. Each day had been a battle against hunger, thirst, and the cold nights that bit into her skin. The baby was weak, its tiny body shaking from hunger, and the mother's heart ached with fear. She had no food to give, no water to quench the thirst, and no shelter from the unforgiving sun. Every moment felt like walking on the edge of a knife, and she prayed that somehow they would survive another day. As she moved slowly along the rocky path, she scanned the hills and valleys for signs of life. The land was mostly empty, dotted with sparse shrubs and dry grass. Occasionally, she would see distant figures, other travelers, or perhaps hunters. But she kept her distance. She had learned to trust no one, for the world had become a dangerous place. She held her baby closer, whispering soft words of comfort, though she herself felt almost as fragile as the child she carried. Hours passed, and the sun climbed higher in the sky. Her lips were cracked from thirst, and her legs ached from carrying the child over the uneven ground. She paused to rest under a lone tree, its branches offering a small shadow. She laid the baby on a piece of cloth she had brought and gave it a few drops of water from a small flask. It was not enough, but it was all she had. Her heart sank as the baby cried, softly, its tiny fists clenching and unclenching. She pressed her face to the child's, tears rolling down her cheeks. "I will find help," she whispered. "I promise, my little one, I will find help." The wind shifted, carrying a new scent, smoke, the faint sound of voices, and the warmth of human presence. Her heart leapt and froze at the same time. She knew that people could mean safety, but they could also mean danger. Slowly, cautiously, she followed the scent and sound, moving along a narrow path between rocks. As she approached, she saw a small camp nestled beside a river. Rough. Smoke curled up from a fire, and figures moved around the camp. There were women, and she recognized their features as different from her own. These were Apache women, strong and purposeful, with careful movements and watchful eyes. Fear and hope collided in her chest. She had heard stories of the Apache, some frightening, some kind. She knew that approaching them could be risky, but she could not leave her baby to starve. Summoning all her courage, she stepped into view, keeping her hands raised slightly to show she meant no harm. The women noticed her immediately. Their eyes were sharp and alert, sizing her up, reading her fear, her desperation, and the child she carried. A hush fell over the camp, the crackle of the fire seeming louder in the silence. One of the women, older and taller than the others, stepped forward. Her face was weathered, her eyes intense but not unkind. "Why are you here?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. The mother swallowed hard, her throat dry. I have a baby," she said, her voice trembling. "He is hungry. I have no food. Please, I need help." The Apache woman studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. The mother could see the calculation in her eyes, the weighing of risk and the understanding of suffering. The other women in the camp began to gather closer, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and caution. They whispered among themselves in a language the mother could not understand. She watched them anxiously, clutching her baby, unsure of what might happen next. But the catcher of breaths, batted in men, sobbed the deep sage after its breath, and Tao was its power. They had seen suffering before. They had survived hardships, and they knew the price of life in a land that was often cruel and unyielding. Finally, the older woman spoke again. "Your child is small," she said, her voice softer now. "He is weak."
"You need help." Relief flooded the mother, and tears sprang to her eyes.
"Perhaps. Yes," she whispered. "I beg you. Please, just a little help. He will die without food." The woman nodded once more and motioned for her to come closer. The mother stepped forward cautiously, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and hope. Every instinct told her to be careful, to watch for danger, but the baby's cries guided her steps. She would take the risk. She had no choice. The Apache women led her to the fire and offered a small bowl of warm milk. It was not much, but the baby's eyes brightened as she lifted him to her chest and fed him. The mother felt a small surge of hope, a fragile thread connecting her to the possibility of survival. She watched as the child drank eagerly, his tiny body gaining strength with each sip. Around the fire, the Apache women continued their quiet work, tending to their own needs but keeping an eye on the newcomer and her baby. There was a sense of order, of experience, of knowing how to survive in a world that was often harsh and unforgiving. As the day wore on, the mother noticed the complexity of the camp. The women worked together, sharing tasks and responsibilities, moving with efficiency and care. Some spoke softly to the baby, offering gentle words, while others prepared food and water. The mother observed in silence, her fear mingling with awe. Realized that these women, so different from herself in appearance and language, were not cruel. They were survivors. They had learned to navigate a dangerous world just as she had, but their ways were shaped by their own history, their own struggles, and their own wisdom. Sitting by the fire, she cradled her baby, feeling the warmth seep into her chilled fingers. She thought of the journey that had brought them here, the days of walking through dry hills, the nights spent shivering under the open sky. She thought of her husband, taken away by the soldiers, and the uncertainty of what the future might hold.
Yet, in this moment, she felt a small glimmer of hope.
The baby's soft cries had turned into gentle coos as he fed, and the warmth of the fire seemed to chase away some of the fear. She realized that survival was not just about strength or skill, it was also about connection, about the rare moments of kindness that could appear even in the harshest of circumstances. The older Apache woman returned, sitting across from the mother. Her eyes were steady, watching the child, then the mother. There was a weight in her gaze, a silent communication that spoke of experience and understanding. The mother felt both relief and tension, unsure what might come next. She had crossed a line by seeking help, and now she waited, knowing that the choices ahead might demand more from her than she had ever imagined. A day faded into evening, and the firelight danced across the faces of the women, casting shadows that seemed to stretch into the desert night. The mother felt the exhaustion settle into her bones, a heavy, bone-deep weariness. But alongside it was a sense of fragile safety, the knowledge that for now her baby had food and warmth. Round, she watched him sleep, his tiny chest rising and falling with gentle rhythm, and she whispered a promise into the night. "We will survive," she said softly. "I will keep you safe, no matter what it takes." And as the stars began to appear in the clear night sky, she held her child close, drawing strength from the quiet presence of the women who had offered help in a world that had so often been unkind. Though she did not yet understand all that might be asked of her in the coming days, she felt a small flicker of hope, a belief that even in the most desperate moments there could be compassion, and that life, fragile as it was, could be preserved. The mother and child rested near the fire, their lives intertwined with those of the Apache women, a temporary bond formed out of necessity and humanity. In the quiet desert night, with the sound of the river nearby and the stars overhead, a journey of survival had just begun, one that would test courage, resilience, and the unbreakable bond between a mother and her child. The morning sun broke over the hills, casting a golden glow on the small camp by the river. The young mother awoke slowly, still holding her baby close. The warmth of the fire from the night before had faded, and the cool desert air made her shiver. She looked down at her child, whose tiny chest rose and fell with slow, steady breaths. Relief washed over her, mixed with the quiet fear that the day might bring new challenges. She had survived the night, but she knew that surviving today would require courage and careful choices. As she sat by the fire, the older Apache woman who had first spoken to her the day before approached once more. She carried a small bowl of warm milk, which she offered to the mother. The young mother accepted it with gratitude, sipping cautiously. The warmth spread through her body, giving her strength she had not felt for days. But the baby stirred, sensing the mother's renewed energy, and she smiled softly. It was a small moment of peace, but in the desert, even small moments of peace were precious. The older woman motioned for the mother to follow her to the edge of the camp. Hesitant but trusting, the mother walked slowly, careful not to stumble over the rough stones. As she reached the women, she noticed the way they watched her, their expressions unreadable. Some were busy tending to their own children, while others carried out tasks with quiet efficiency. The older woman spoke again, her voice calm but firm. "Your child needs care," she said, "but help comes with a choice." Shh. The mother's heart sank. She had sensed there might be conditions, but she had not expected anything so serious. She looked at the older woman, her eyes wide with fear. "What choice?" she asked softly, her voice trembling. The woman paused, studying her carefully. "To feed your child, you must give something in return," she said. "Something that may be hard for you." The words fell on her like a heavy stone. She clutched her baby closer, trying to shield him from the weight of reality. Fear and confusion swirled inside her. She had traveled through deserts, fled from soldiers, and faced hunger and exhaustion. But now she faced a moral dilemma she had never imagined.
Her mind raced, trying to understand what the woman meant.
The older woman's gaze softened slightly, as if she understood the turmoil inside the mother's heart. "It is not cruelty," she said quietly. "It is survival. The world is harsh. Sometimes the living must make difficult choices." The mother sank to the ground, tears welling in her eyes. She thought of the baby, weak and tiny, depending entirely on her. How could she protect him? How could she endure whatever was being asked of her? She had always believed that kindness and morality guided people's actions, but now she realized that survival could demand sacrifices she had never imagined. Her thoughts returned to the past, the days before the soldiers came, the laughter of her husband, the small joys of life that now seemed so distant. Around the camp, the Apache women whispered among themselves. Though the mother could not understand the words, she sensed the seriousness of their discussion. Some looked at her with sympathy, others with quiet curiosity. She realized that they were not trying to frighten her, but were preparing her for a reality that was harsh and unavoidable. The older woman gestured for the mother to remain calm, and the young mother nodded, though her hands shook. She had no choice but to listen, to understand, and to weigh what was being asked. The woman spoke again, explaining in simple gestures and words that help for the baby was possible, but in return she must do something uncomfortable. The mother's mind raced. She had already given so much of herself, enduring hardship and fear. But she give this too? The thought of it made her stomach twist. But she knew the alternative was unthinkable. The baby was too small, too fragile to survive without food and care. Every instinct screamed that she must protect him at all costs. Hours passed as the mother sat quietly, watching her baby feed and grow stronger. The Apache women moved around her with practiced efficiency, gathering firewood, preparing small meals, and tending to their own children. The mother observed their actions closely. She began to notice a strange mixture of strength and compassion. These women, though firm in their demands, were also capable of care and understanding. It was a delicate balance, one that she had not encountered before.
During the afternoon, the older woman returned to speak again. She explained gently that the choice she faced was not unusual in the world of survival.
Life, they said, was not always guided by fairness or morality. Sometimes, people had to compromise to endure hardship to make sacrifices for those they loved. The mother listened, her heart heavy, realizing that this was not cruelty. It was the harsh reality of survival in a land that could be unforgiving. The baby's soft coos reminded her of why she had come. Breath. She could endure fear, discomfort, and uncertainty, but she could not allow her child to suffer. As the day wore on, the mother thought deeply about the decision before her. She remembered her husband, who had always been a source of courage and comfort. He was gone now, and she had no one to turn to but these women, strangers in appearance, but potential allies in survival. She considered the future, wondering how her life might change depending on the choice she made. The baby's survival was paramount, and the weight of responsibility pressed heavily on her. Desperation. She realized that being a mother often meant facing impossible decisions, and that love sometimes demanded sacrifices that seemed unbearable. The Apache women continued their work, giving her small tasks to keep her busy. She helped gather water from the river, collected firewood, and even assisted in preparing simple meals. In the process, she observed their lives more closely. These women had endured struggles of their own, losses, hardships, and the constant threat of danger. They were not cruel. They were survivors, shaped by circumstances and necessity. The mother felt a strange connection forming, a fragile understanding that perhaps they could help her child, even if the price was high. By evening, the mother could see that her baby had grown stronger. The milk and care provided by the Apache women had revived him, his tiny body gaining strength and color. She felt gratitude but also a sense of dread, knowing that the offer of help came with a condition she had yet to fully face. Watched the fire flicker, thinking of the words of the older woman, understanding that survival often required compromises that were difficult to accept. The night arrived with a quiet calm, the desert sky filled with stars. The mother sat close to the baby, reflecting on the day. She understood that the choice ahead was difficult, but she also realized that it was not one she could avoid. To protect her child, she might have to endure discomfort, fear, or shame. Yet, as she watched her baby sleep peacefully, a spark of determination grew within her. She would find a way to navigate this challenge. She would do whatever was necessary to ensure her child survived, even if it meant making a painful choice. In the quiet of the night, she whispered to the baby, promising that they would survive together. The Apache women watched silently, some offering small nods of encouragement, others simply observing. It was clear that while the choice was hers, she was not entirely alone. These women, who had once been strangers, were now witnesses to the struggle and protectors of her child. The mother understood that the path ahead would not be easy, but for the first time since her journey began, she felt a small sense of hope. The day ended with the mother holding her baby close, feeling the warmth of the fire and the faint sense of safety that came from being surrounded by those who understood survival. She knew that the coming days would bring more challenges, difficult decisions, and tests of courage. Yet she also knew that she was not completely alone. The Apache women, though demanding, offered a chance for her child to live. And in a world where life was uncertain and danger was constant, that chance was worth everything. As she drifted to sleep, the mother's thoughts were filled with determination. Breath. She would face whatever was asked of her. She would protect her baby, endure fear, and navigate the challenges ahead. Survival was not just about strength or skill. It was about courage, love, and the willingness to make difficult choices. The mother understood this now, and though the road ahead was unclear, she was ready to walk it, step by step, with her child in her arms. The morning arrived slowly, the first light spilling across the hills in pale shades of gold. The young mother sat by the riverbank cradling her baby, whose soft cries had become gentle coos. He was stronger now, his tiny body no longer trembling with hunger. The warmth of the Apache camp and the care of the women had revived him, and the mother felt both relief and dread. She knew that the gift of survival came with a cost she had not yet fully faced. Today, the choice she had been fearing would no longer be avoidable. She watched the Apache women move about the camp, carrying out their tasks with quiet efficiency. Some tended to their own children, while others prepared food or gathered firewood. They spoke in low, calm voices, their language unfamiliar but filled with a rhythm that seemed comforting in its consistency.
The mother's mind raced as she thought about what had been asked of her.
The older woman had made the terms clear. The baby would be cared for, fed, and kept safe, but only if the mother agreed to a personal sacrifice.
The young mother felt her chest tighten.
She had imagined this moment many times in the nights she had spent wandering the hills, clutching her baby. Each scenario had filled her with fear, shame, and hesitation. And now, here it was, the unavoidable reality. Brave looked down at her child, who had begun to smile in his innocent way, unaware of the weight his survival placed upon her. Every mother's instinct screamed to protect, and she realized that protecting him might require more courage than she had ever known. For hours, she walked slowly through her thoughts, pacing near the river and letting the water's quiet murmur soothe her vibration. She thought of the journey that had brought her here. The long days of walking, the nights spent shivering under the open sky, and the constant fear of being discovered by soldiers. She thought of her husband, whose absence still left a hollow ache in her heart, and of the family she had lost along the way, and she thought of the baby whose tiny life depended entirely on her. He was small and fragile, yet full of possibility. He was her reason to endure, to face fear, and to make a choice that no one should ever have to make. As the sun rose higher, she returned to the camp, her steps slow but determined. The older woman approached once more, her expression calm yet firm. She did not speak immediately, but her eyes conveyed understanding. She seemed to sense the storm of thoughts raging within the mother's mind. Finally, she spoke, gently but without hesitation. "The choice is yours," she said. "You must decide. To survive, you must decide what you are willing to give. We do not force. We only offer a way." The mother sat down heavily, her hands trembling. The words echoed in her mind. She realized that survival was rarely simple. Life demanded compromise, sacrifice, and the ability to endure situations that tested one's courage and dignity. She looked at the baby, now playing softly with a small piece of cloth, and felt a surge of determination. She would do whatever it took to keep him alive. The thought steadied her, even as fear and uncertainty threatened to overwhelm her. Time seemed to stretch as she wrestled with her thoughts. Oh, she imagined what might happen if she refused the offer. The baby could grow weaker, his cries turning to silence. But he might not survive another day. And yet, the price of survival, the personal cost, felt almost unbearable. She had never faced such a moral dilemma before. She had known hardship, hunger, and fear, but this demanded a different kind of strength. She realized that courage was not just about facing danger. It was about making choices that preserved life, even when those choices tested every fiber of one's being. The Apache women continued their work around her, moving silently and efficiently, their presence both reassuring and intimidating. She observed them, noting the way they balanced strength and care. They were not cruel, but they had learned to navigate a world that often offered little mercy. They understood the realities of survival and the difficult decisions that came with it. Watching them, the mother began to see a reflection of herself, not in appearance but in the determination to protect life, to endure hardship, and to act with purpose in the face of fear. As the afternoon sun warmed the desert, she finally approached the older woman. Her heart pounded and her hands shook, but there was resolve in her gaze. She spoke softly, almost in a whisper, as if her words carried the weight of the entire world. I will do what is needed, she said, her voice trembling but firm. The older woman nodded, her eyes showing both understanding and respect. She gestured for the mother to follow her to a more private space, where she could complete the agreement that would allow her child to survive. The young mother's thoughts raced as she walked beside the woman. She focused on her breathing, trying to steady herself. She reminded herself that her goal was simple, though difficult, to ensure her baby lived. All other fears, doubts, and shame would have to be set aside. The baby's life depended on her courage, her willingness to endure discomfort and fear, and her ability to navigate a situation that tested her in ways she had never imagined. Every step forward was an act of bravery, and she clung to the thought that this choice, as painful as it was, would secure the future for the child she loved above all else. When they reached the edge of the camp, the older woman spoke again, her voice low and steady. You have chosen to protect your child, she said. That is the most important act of courage there is. Desk, remember that you are not alone in this. Life demands hard choices, but it also allows compassion to survive. Trust that your strength and your love will guide you. The young mother nodded, her hands clasped tightly around the baby. She took a deep breath, allowing herself a moment to reflect on the journey that had brought her here. The days of hardship, the nights of fear, the countless obstacles overcome. And now, standing on the threshold of a decision that would shape the rest of her life, she felt a sense of clarity. She understood that survival was rarely simple, that moral dilemmas were part of life, and that love often demanded choices that tested the limits of one's courage. Hours seemed to pass as she completed the steps the older woman had explained. She focused on the baby, drawing strength from his tiny movements, his soft coos, and the trust he placed entirely in her. Though the decision had been difficult, she felt a sense of resolve settling over her. She had made a choice, not for herself, but for the child she loved. And in that moment, she understood something vital. That motherhood was not just about nurturing, but about courage, sacrifice, and the willingness to endure hardships that others might never imagine. By evening, the baby was settled, fed, and resting safely in her arms. The mother felt a mixture of relief, exhaustion, and a quiet sense of accomplishment. She had faced fear, navigated uncertainty, and made a decision that no one should have to make, all for the sake of her child. Around the fire, the Apache women moved with calm efficiency, their eyes showing acknowledgement of her courage. They understood the weight of what she had done, the bravery required to face the impossible and act with purpose in the midst of fear. As the stars appeared in the desert sky, the young mother held her baby close, feeling the warmth of his tiny body against her own. She reflected on the journey so far, the struggles, the losses, and the moments of hope, and realized that she had grown stronger in ways she had never anticipated. She had faced moral challenges, fear, and uncertainty, yet she had endured. She had protected her child, and in doing so, discovered reserves of courage she did not know she possessed. The night was quiet, save for the distant murmur of the river and the soft crackle of the campfire. The mother whispered to her baby, promising that she would always protect him, no matter the hardships that lay ahead. She knew that the coming days would bring new challenges, but she also knew that she was no longer helpless. She had made a choice, faced fear, and found the strength to act with courage. Under the quiet stars, she felt a small, fragile sense of hope. The hope that life, even in its most difficult moments, could endure, and that love and courage could guide them through the darkest times. The morning sun rose slowly over the hills, spreading light across the camp and reflecting on the river that wound quietly through the valley. The young mother woke with a mixture of relief and weariness. Her baby slept peacefully in her arms, his small body finally looking healthy and strong. After the difficult choice she had made the day before, she felt the weight of exhaustion pressing on her shoulders, but also a strange sense of quiet pride. She had faced fear, uncertainty, and a moral dilemma she could never have imagined, and yet she had endured. As she watched her child, she began to notice the Apache women more closely. They moved with a kind of quiet purpose, their gestures precise and practiced. Some of them tended to small fires, while others gathered water or prepared food. Each movement seemed deliberate, as though every action was shaped by experience and survival. The young mother observed them in silence, feeling a growing sense of respect. They had endured hardships of their own, losses and struggles that had taught them resilience and strength. And yet, despite the harshness of their world, they were capable of care and understanding. The older woman, who had guided her through the difficult decision, approached and offered a small smile. Her eyes, which had been sharp and assessing before, now held a gentleness that the young mother had not noticed. She motioned for the mother to sit by the fire, and the young mother complied, cradling her baby as she settled down. "Bess, your child is safe," the woman said softly. "That is what matters most. Pray. Life is difficult, but care and compassion can still be found, even here." The young mother felt a lump in her throat. She had been so consumed with fear and survival that she had not truly considered the possibility of kindness in this harsh world. Simple yet sincere, filled her with a quiet hope. She realized that, though she had made a painful choice, it had allowed her child to live, and in that survival she had found a connection to these women, a bond formed through shared understanding of hardship, loss, and resilience. Throughout the day, the mother observed the camp with growing interest. The Apache women worked together seamlessly, sharing tasks and responsibilities. They spoke quietly to their children, sang soft songs, and exchanged small gestures of care and encouragement. Some of them approached her baby, speaking in gentle tones she could not understand, but that seemed comforting all the same. She noticed the expressions on their faces. Some were curious, others wary, but many held a quiet warmth. The young mother began to see the humanity behind their strength, the balance of toughness and tenderness that had allowed them to survive in a harsh and unforgiving land.
She also began to notice her own growth.
The choice she had made yesterday had been painful, frightening, and morally complex, but it had also revealed her inner strength. She had faced fear and uncertainty, yet she had acted with courage and purpose.
She realized that survival was not just about physical endurance. It was about the ability to make difficult decisions, to act despite fear, and to protect those who depended on her.
Desk. And in the small triumphs of her child's recovery, she began to feel a sense of accomplishment and pride that she had not thought possible. As the day progressed, she spent more time with the other women. Though language remained a barrier, they communicated through gestures, expressions, and shared tasks. The mother helped gather water from the river, assist with preparing food, and care for other children. Each small task allowed her to observe, learn, and participate in the life of the camp. Slowly, she began to feel a sense of belonging, a fragile but meaningful connection to people who had once seemed strangers. She realized that survival was not just about strength or skill, but about connection, trust, and mutual support. The older woman approached again in the late afternoon, motioning for the mother to follow her to a quiet spot near the river. She spoke gently, explaining the ways in which survival sometimes required compromise, difficult choices, and endurance.
"The world is not always fair," she said.
Sometimes we must do things we would not choose to protect those we love. That is the way of life, and the way of survival.
You have already shown courage and wisdom by making the choice for your child. Now you must continue to walk this path with strength and care.
The young mother listened intently, realizing that the older woman's words were not meant to judge, but to guide. They were teaching her how to navigate the complexities of life in a world that often demanded difficult decisions. She reflected on the days and nights she had spent alone, the fear and uncertainty she had faced, and the constant responsibility of caring for a child in such harsh conditions.
But she realized that while the choice had been painful, it had also allowed her to understand the resilience of both herself and the people around her. As evening approached, the mother returned to the camp with her baby. The fire was warm, and the other women moved about with calm efficiency. Some approached her quietly, offering small gestures of encouragement, an extra blanket, a soft smile, or a gentle nod. She began to understand that these gestures were their way of sharing strength, of offering connection, and of acknowledging the courage she had shown. Though she had entered the camp as a stranger, she was slowly becoming part of the community, united by the shared understanding of survival and care. The mother sat by the fire holding her baby close and reflected on the events of the past days. She realized that life was often filled with difficult choices, fear, and uncertainty, but also moments of kindness, connection, and hope. She had learned that courage was not just about facing danger, but about making choices guided by love, protecting those who depended on her, and finding strength within herself. She had also learned that compassion could exist even in the harshest environments, and that human connection could provide comfort and guidance in moments of despair. Night fell, bringing a quiet stillness to the camp. The stars shimmered above, and the river flowed softly nearby. The young mother held her baby tightly, feeling the warmth of his tiny body and the soft rhythm of his breathing. She understood that the path ahead would still be filled with challenges. But she no longer felt entirely alone. She had discovered a network of support, understanding, and care, and she knew that these connections could help guide her through the difficult days to come. In the quiet of the night, she whispered to her baby, promising that she would protect him, guide him, and do everything in her power to ensure his survival.
She thought about the lessons she had learned from the Apache women, the balance of strength and compassion, the resilience required to endure hardships, and the ways in which people could support each other, even in difficult circumstances. She realized that while the choice she had made had been painful, it had also brought her closer to understanding the complexities of life, survival, and human connection. The young mother closed her eyes, allowing herself a moment of rest. She had faced fear, uncertainty, and moral challenges, and she had acted with courage and determination. She had nurtured her baby, strengthened by the care and guidance of the Apache women, and she had begun to see the ways in which human connection could sustain life and provide hope. As she drifted into sleep, she felt a sense of quiet resilience settle within her, a knowledge that no matter what challenges lay ahead, she possessed the courage, wisdom, and love to face them. The first light of dawn stretched across the desert hills, bringing with it a quiet stillness. The young mother woke slowly, cradling her baby in her arms. He stirred gently, stretching his tiny hands and opening his bright eyes. The warmth of the camp and the care he had received over the past days had restored him. He no longer trembled with hunger or weakness. Relief and gratitude filled her heart, but so did a quiet sadness. The days she had spent here had been difficult and challenging, and she knew that the journey ahead would not be simple. Yet, for the first time in a long while, she felt a sense of hope. As she prepared to leave the camp, she noticed the Apache women moving about with calm efficiency. Some were gathering firewood, while others tended to children or small fires. They spoke quietly to one another, their movements precise, yet their eyes held warmth. The young mother observed them, feeling a mixture of admiration and understanding. These women had endured hardships, danger, and loss, yet they had survived. They had shown her the delicate balance of strength and compassion, and in doing so had offered her child a chance at life. The older woman, who had guided her through the past days, approached and motioned for her to follow. They walked together to the edge of the camp, where the morning light reflected off the river. The woman spoke gently, her words carrying a quiet wisdom. "You have cared for your child and shown courage beyond what most can imagine," she said. "Life will continue to be difficult, but you now carry the strength to face it. Remember the lessons of survival, the compassion you have received, and the courage you have shown. These will guide you."
The young mother listened intently, her heart heavy with emotion.
She thought of the difficult choices she had made, the fear she had faced, and the moments of despair she had endured.
She also thought of the small moments of kindness, the gentle gestures of the Apache women, the warmth of the fire, the quiet care given to her baby. She realized that survival was not just about enduring hardship, but about understanding the humanity of others and the value of compassion, even in the harshest circumstances. As she prepared to leave, the older woman handed her a small bundle. Inside were simple supplies, dried food, a piece of cloth for the baby, and a small container of water. "These will help you on your journey," she said. "Use them wisely and remember that you are not alone. You carry the strength of those who have guided you, and you carry the courage that has brought you this far." The young mother accepted the bundle with gratitude, tears welling in her eyes. She realized that while the path ahead would still be challenging, she had gained tools, wisdom, and courage to help her continue. Rest. She lifted her baby carefully, feeling his tiny warmth against her chest. She looked once more at the camp, at the women who had offered care and guidance, and felt a sense of deep appreciation. These strangers had become a part of her journey, offering hope in a world that had often seemed cruel and unforgiving. She realized that the bonds formed in times of hardship could be powerful and meaningful, even when they were brief. She whispered softly to the baby, promising that she would continue to protect him, guide him, and ensure his safety as best she could. As they began their journey away from the camp, the mother reflected on the lessons she had learned. She had faced fear and uncertainty, navigated a moral dilemma, and acted with courage to protect her child. She had witnessed compassion, resilience, and the strength of human connection. She realized that life often demanded difficult choices, but that those choices could also bring growth, understanding, and hope. Every step she took was guided by love, courage, and a renewed sense of purpose. The terrain was still rough, with rocky hills and dry plains stretching into the distance. The journey would be long, and the mother knew that challenges would continue to arise. Yet she no longer felt completely alone or helpless. She carried within her the strength of the Apache women's guidance, the lessons of survival and the courage that had allowed her to make difficult decisions. Each step forward was a testament to her resilience, determination, and love for her child. So along the way, she encountered moments that reminded her of the harshness of the world. Scorching sun, uneven terrain, and the uncertainty of where to find food and water tested her endurance. Yet she faced each challenge with a steady resolve, drawing strength from the memory of the care and guidance she had received. The baby, now stronger and more alert, responded to her calm confidence. She whispered words of encouragement to him, promising that together they would endure and survive. During moments of rest, she reflected on the compassion she had witnessed. She thought of the older woman's quiet guidance, the gentle care of the other women, and the subtle ways in which they had shared strength and support. She realized that even in a world filled with uncertainty and danger, acts of kindness could have a profound impact. The memory of their gestures provided comfort and inspiration, reminding her that survival was not just about strength or skill, but also about connection, trust, and understanding. As the days passed, the young mother and her baby continued their journey. They faced challenges, harsh weather, scarce resources, and the constant vigilance required in a world filled with uncertainty. Yet she carried a quiet confidence, knowing that she had endured great trials and had learned the value of courage, love, and resilience. Every step became a testament to her determination to protect her child and to honor the lessons of survival she had learned in the Apache camp. Along the way, she encountered moments of beauty and quiet joy. The soft sound of a distant river, the gentle rustle of the wind through trees, and the warmth of the sun on her face reminded her of the world's possibilities. She shared these moments with her baby, speaking softly, singing gentle songs, and feeling a sense of connection to life that went beyond fear and survival. These moments, small and fleeting, became treasures, reminders that hope and joy could exist even in difficult circumstances. Eventually, the mother began to see signs of settlements in the distance, small clusters of homes, people moving about, and signs of life that suggested safety and community. Her heart lifted, knowing that she was nearing a place where her child could grow, learn, and thrive. She reflected on how far they had come, the challenges they had overcome, and the courage it had taken to survive.
The journey had been difficult, but it had also taught her the strength of love, the power of human connection, and the resilience that lived within her.
As they approached the edge of the settlement, the young mother felt a sense of completion. The baby was healthy and safe, and she had endured trials that had tested her courage, morals, and determination. She looked back in her mind at the Apache camp, at the women who had offered care and guidance, and felt a deep sense of gratitude. Their compassion, wisdom, and strength had shaped the path of her journey and ensured the survival of her child. In the quiet of the evening, as they entered the settlement, the mother held her baby tightly, feeling the warmth of his tiny body and the soft rhythm of his breathing. She realized that the journey of survival was ongoing, but she now possessed the courage, knowledge, and resilience to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The world remained difficult, but she had learned that love, determination, and compassion could guide her through even the darkest moments. As night fell, she settled in a safe place, the baby asleep in her arms. She reflected on the journey, the struggles, the fears, the difficult choices, and the moments of kindness she had encountered. But she understood that survival was not just about enduring hardship, but about connecting with others, learning from experience, and acting with courage and love. She whispered softly to her child, promising that she would always protect him, guide him, and ensure his future. In the stillness of the night, the young mother felt a quiet strength settle within her. She had endured the impossible, made difficult choices, and nurtured life in a world that often demanded sacrifices. She had discovered the power of compassion, the value of human connection, and the resilience that comes from love and determination. But she drifted into sleep. She knew that the future would still hold challenges, but she also knew that together she and her child would face them with courage, hope, and the strength of the heart that had guided them this far. And in that quiet desert night, under the endless stars, she understood that survival was not just a matter of strength or skill. It was about love, courage, compassion, and the human spirit's unbreakable will to endure.